Hey everybody, good afternoon and welcome to your live and free training all about the GDPR. So the more and more I say this acronym, the more I'm like getting everything all jumbled together because I'm saying like maybe about 8.5 billion times since like a couple weeks ago. So that's just an approximation. So anyway, today's live training is all about the GDPR. It's the General Data Regulation, protection regulation that's coming out of the EU, the European Union. So you're going to hear me tell you more about the GDPR today than you ever cared to know. But as you guys know, the cost of doing business, right? So we get this awesome ability and opportunity to serve people in our businesses, and because of it we have to learn about this kind of stuff and all other kinds of fun stuff related to like running our business and the law and all that good stuff. So as we get started here, I just want to say hi, I'm Sam. I know a lot of you are new to the group because you heard about the GDPR training that I'm doing today. So if we haven't met already, I'm Sam Vanderwielen. I own Samvanderwielen LLC, where I empower women with DIY legal templates, but also with the legal information that they need to know to run legally legit businesses, as I call them, online, mostly service-based businesses. So I really work with women and do this empowerment in 3 ways. So through my DIY legal templates, which are all fill in the blank, instant download documents available on my shop page of my website, things like contracts and website policies, including privacy policies. And then also through my course, Fearlessly Legal, which you're going to learn more about at the end of today's training. And then also my BizStorming coaching sessions. Those are my one-on-one, like 90-minute intensive sessions. So that's really what I do. I'm from Philly. I would love it as you guys are coming into the group and you're watching today's training to drop me a note, let me know you're here. Say hi, let me know I'm not talking into outer space by myself, and then let me know where you're coming from. So that isn't just to get to know you, which I definitely want to do, but it's also going to be really helpful for me to get a good understanding of like who's here live. And because you're here live, you get the bonus and the benefit of me not only being able to answer some of your questions, but also, if you guys drop some notes telling me where you're from, then I know to tailor a little bit of what I'm saying, like if we have some EU people here, no EU people here, all of that good stuff. So it'll help me. So as you're coming in, just say hi, let me know where you're coming in from, where you live and work, city, state, whatever, or country works for me. And that would be super helpful. So like I said, I'm coming to you from Philadelphia. That's where I was born and raised. Not in West Philadelphia, though, like Will Smith, just regular old Center City. And so that was about it for introductions. Okay, so I wanted to let you know that. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. So one, hopefully, if you don't know me already, you know that I am super casual. So I am not like a uptight, stuffy lawyer. I left that in the dust a long time ago. So with that being said, I would love for this to be a space where you can ask questions, you can hop in, make comments, like whatever you want. And if you don't feel comfortable asking them here, you can always reach out to me privately, either through like a DM on Facebook or by email at sam@samvanderwielen.com or through my website. But just know that I'm only saying this because like no question is a like dumb question or anything like that. This stuff is super confusing. It's really hard to understand. And so just please don't feel afraid to ask anything at any time. Just want to let you know that. If you're one of my clients and you're watching this, it's great that you're watching this. I want you to watch this for sure. I just want to let you know that if you're one of my clients who's already purchased either the privacy policy template or the total website solution, which includes the privacy policy template as the 3 website policy bundle, you are already getting the updated privacy policy template and updated video tutorials. So that is coming to you by email ASAP. And then also anybody who purchased my ultimate bundle, which is my new Fearlessly Legal course with 9 DIY legal templates, you guys are getting it too. And then you're also getting this new 3-part GDPR video training that I'm coming out with that's like super extensive and it's going to help you a lot. So with that, I wouldn't be a very good lawyer if I didn't give you a short disclaimer. So obviously you guys know that I am a attorney. I'm not your attorney. So not only by you being in this group, but like by joining this training, buying my templates, buying my course, working with me in any capacity. I'm never your lawyer. As much as I love you guys, I am not your lawyer. I'm your friend, and I'm really more of a coach, and I'm here to give you information and tons of valuable resources and the templates themselves, to empower you to go out and do this on your own and be the badass CEO that you are. So with that, just know that I can't give you legal advice, but I always try to help point you in the right direction, as much as I possibly can, as always. And then I just want to let you know that very quickly at the end, I am going to go over the privacy policy template that I do offer for so many of you who are just like, I don't feel like doing this. Like, I don't want to learn this stuff myself. I don't want to spend days or hours or whatever figuring out what my privacy policy needs to say. I just want to like have it done for me. My privacy policy template is a great option for you. So we're going to talk about that, and then we'll talk about Fearlessly Legal, because my new course is also including a 3-part GDPR video training series. And if you get the ultimate bundle option, you get the course plus 9 templates, including the privacy policy and a bunch others that you need. So we'll go over that quickly at the end. So I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit of like what I always call like the 30,000 foot view of what you'll learn today in this training. I think it's really helpful to, especially with the GDPR, because it gets hairy real fast. I think it's really helpful to step back and think about kind of overall what we're talking about here. So part 1 of this training, and then especially if you go into like my 3-part video training series, is going to be all about kind of like the GDPR basics. So it's like, what is it? Who does it apply to? Why the heck do you care? You know, what's the big deal? And how does it affect you? Really, at the end of the day, like, what does this mean for you, right? I have a pretty good idea of like what my clients do and what kind of businesses you guys have and all of that kind of stuff. That's also why it's super helpful for me to, if you can comment as I'm going along, let me know where you're watching this training from or where you're from, so that I can maybe tailor some of my comments as we go along, but also so you can ask questions. So first up, we'll talk about what it really is, and we'll go over all the basics. Then I'm going to move into talking about the GDPR and your email marketing / email list / opt-ins, like all the forms and freebies and all that fun stuff. So that's going to be part 2. And then part 3 is going to be all about your privacy policy. So we're going to talk all about how your privacy policy is affected by the GDPR, because it most certainly is. It's really, probably the more underlooked part, because so many of us are focused on the email list part, which I understand because it's very like technical, and I get it. But we also want to be focused on the privacy policy. So those are really the 3 major areas that we're going to talk about today: the what it is, the email list and email marketing, and then your privacy policy. So I have notes here, and if anybody knows me, by the way, I never use notes. I'm like a totally off the top of my head kind of person, never use notes. So that's how you know how crazy this stinking law is. It is nuts, right? So let's get into it. What is the GDPR? You have probably been hearing so much about it. If you guys have been hearing about the GDPR and you're probably sick of it, give me a thumbs up or something like that, and let me know that you've been hearing so much about the GDPR. So it's been all over my radar, obviously. My clients have been letting me know. I've been getting lots of requests to be on podcasts and all this kind of stuff. It's everywhere right now, and understandably so, because it's intense, right? It's intense. So really, the GDPR it's a privacy law that's coming out of the European Union. So if you Google like European Union countries, for anybody else who wants to look this up, there are a whole set of countries that belong to the European Union. I'm going to call it the EU for the rest of this so that I don't have to say that a million times. So it's a privacy law that's coming out of the EU. It actually went into, or like it passed 2 years ago. So in 2016, right? So a lot of people have been going around saying this is a new law. It's not that it's necessarily new. The reason that you guys have been hearing so much about it is because it's coming into compliance on May 25th. So that's coming up super soon, right? Really, really soon. What is this? May 9th. So it's coming up really soon. And what that means is that we all have to be in compliance with everything we talk about today by May 25th. And so when we go through the steps that I'm going to break down for you, because I'm going to break down these 4 like super easy steps that you're going to take. Well, okay, let me go back. I shouldn't say that they're easy. I feel like that's misleading. They're not easy. It's just that I'm going to break it down in an easy way, an easy to understand way. But it's a super big pain in the butt. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to break down these 4 steps for you. And you have to remember that this stuff has to be in place by May 28th. So this is something, if you haven't already, like I have recently, block off some time on your calendar. Personally, I think blocking off some time on the weekend because it's just like not happening Monday through Friday. So I'm blocking off time to get this stuff done for myself because I'm getting it done for everybody else and for all my clients, which I should, but I have to do it for me too, right? Because I have an online business. So just remember that everything that we're talking about today has to be in compliance by May 25th. So it's really like a law, it's a privacy law that's related to, it's a bunch of rules related to the processing of people's personal data, right? So we're going to go over like what all of that means. So what's really covered by the GDPR? What's covered is the processing of personal data. And so data is what you're thinking for the most part. It probably goes a little further though than what you're thinking. So hear me out. So the data, the kind of obvious stuff, right? So we have like name, email address, maybe an address, credit card information if you sell like stuff like I do, like templates, right? Where I have financial information or some gobbledygook somewhere on Stripe that looks like financial information. So anything like that is definitely considered data, but some of the trickier things that you just might not be thinking of are like answers to surveys or answers to forms or your CRM, right? Like I use Dubsado, so where I store my clients' personal information that they're filling out to be one of my clients, that is considered personal data under the GDPR. You're also thinking about things like your email marketing list. So people might go on your website and fill out a form, and then that information gets sent over to like MailChimp or ConvertKit or Aweber or ActiveCampaign or whatever you use. That's another place where you're storing personal data. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. So I'm only mentioning this up front because as we're talking about all this stuff today, you want to be thinking about all the places. I think when I hear people talking about GDPR, they're really talking so much about their email list, which is totally cool and accurate, but you have to remember all these other places. There might be like little hidden nooks and crannies in your business that you're just not thinking of, because I know like I can't even keep track. So hopefully, you know, as we're going along, you're thinking of some of those things. So here's a big one about who does it apply to? Because this is the question that, especially at first, I was getting so often was like, how could this apply to me? I'm located in California, in Canada, Australia, wherever it was. Or like, I don't even care if people, you know, from Europe get onto my list, or I'm offer something that's like local and specific here. So I'm not advertising or specifically targeting people in the EU or something like that. I would get a lot of questions like that. That, unfortunately, for the purposes of GDPR, does not matter at all, because the GDPR essentially applies to anytime one or more parties is located within the EU, okay? So that means that if I, Sam, am sending out emails from my little email list, this is my email list, if I'm sending out emails from my email list in Philadelphia and somebody on my email list is located within France, I am required to be in compliance with that person. I have to send things to them the right way. We're going to talk about like what needs to be sent to them and how and all that good stuff. But just for the purposes of like talking about who this even applies to, it's really important for you to know that if you are outside the EU, so if you're someone like me and you're located in the United States or Canada, Australia, any other country that's outside of the EU, my favorite country, Thailand, then you are only required to do all this stuff that we talk about today when it comes to the people who are located in the EU whose personal data you have. So if you have an email list of, if you're in the US and you have an email list of 1,000 people and 7 of those people are located within the EU, we're just talking about, for you, those 7 people. Now, this situation is totally different if you are located in the EU. So if you're the person listening to this training and it's your business and you're the one sending out emails or collecting the personal data, then for you located within the EU, this applies to everything you do. So if you're located within the EU and you have an email list of 1,000, it applies to all 1,000 people on your list. So if you're emailing Sam in Philadelphia because you're located in the EU, then all of this stuff that we talk about today applies to you and every area of your business and every person on your list. But just please, please, please hear me loud and clear, and please comment like, got it, like, got it. Give me a thumbs up, give me a heart, give me something. If you understand that if you are not located in the EU, if you are in the US, in Canada, Australia, wherever else outside of the EU, the GDPR only applies, and its rules only apply to the people on your list or whose personal data you have who are located within the EU. Now, I want to put a little like asterisk here, because one of the kind of underlooked things that I'm seeing when I'm seeing some other like trainings and articles and resources going around about the GDPR is my concern for people on your list or whose personal data you have, whose location is unknown, right? So there are lots of people that we might have on our list for whatever reason. I don't understand how they can do it or like what they're doing or where they're located. I don't even want to know. But anyway, there are people like I noticed on my list, for example, that there were dozens, I think, of people whose location was unknown. Now, why does that matter, right? Because maybe they're living in France, maybe they're living in Florida. Who knows? I don't know. I hope they're living in France for their sake. So if you have people that are unknown, and we're going to talk about this as I break down my 4 steps that I'm going to give you to move forward, I would quantify them, qualify them moving forward for the purposes of GDPR as just assuming they're located in the EU, because it's not going to be an excuse, for lack of a better term, that they were just unknown and you didn't know where they were located, because there's no rule in the GDPR that says like, this only applies to people who are located in the EU that you know are located in the EU. It definitely amps it up a notch, but if you're not sure where they are, I would just be safe, right? And I think that you'll probably see when you go through your personal data and your email list, there probably aren't tons of people on your list that are undisclosed or unknown or whatever your like email service provider calls it. I think I use ConvertKit, and I think they just call it like location unknown. I forget. I emailed them yesterday. And so I'm going to talk you through kind of like what I'm doing and how I'm handling this. But just know, as we're talking today, I would include unknowns as potentially being in the GDPR or being within the EU and being subject to the GDPR. So I would include them in all of this stuff that we're going to talk about today. So what's the idea behind the GDPR, right? Like, what's the big deal? Why did they do this? Why are they torturing us? I don't know. That I actually don't know. But I do know the idea behind it. So the idea behind it is that they want to have lawful processing of personal data. So essentially, I mean, you guys have seen it. Like, you've seen so many stories going around about these big technology companies that are like mishandling stuff or selling things off, or you guys have probably all been subject to these like robocalls because people are selling your phone number and all that nonsense. So I'm assuming that's a lot of where it came from, but it's also really like the purpose behind it is to kind of categorize these lawful bases for processing your data. It basically is giving people back control over their data. Like, they have to know when it's being collected, what it's being collected for, who it's being shared with, all that kind of stuff, right? So there are a lot of policy reasons behind the GDPR. And it's also about safeguarding personal data that you are in control of. So under the GDPR, you might hear this like in other places. Under the GDPR, you, like the person listening to this training, because I'm assuming you own a business and that's why you're watching it, you're called the controller. So you control data, right? So in other words, like, you take people's data in. And so it's talking about making the controller safeguard people's information. So if you're going to collect this stuff, you have to do it responsibly. You have to advise them and get their consent and all this fun stuff. So that's kind of the idea behind the GDPR. I think it's important just to know, because I know how annoying it is. I totally get it. It's annoying for me. Trust me, this is not like a ball of fun for me. So I understand. I find it super fascinating, but I understand that this is not fun and it's inconvenient and annoying and all the fun stuff. I'm not going to ever be somebody who's telling you to like get pumped up to do this kind of stuff and like spend your precious business time doing this. I totally get it. Trust me. You guys know that. So what does the GDPR really require you to do? So really it requires you to have a lawful basis for collecting and processing personal data. So there are a number of lawful bases that are listed within the GDPR, but for the purposes of today's training, I'm really going to focus on one. I'm going to tell you quickly about 3 of the 5, but I think that the first one applies to us most of the time in most cases. So I could have a training on here for like 18.5 hours. I was on a 2.5 hour training for Lori Kennedy's group yesterday. You could go on and on and on about this. It is super technical and super detailed. But for the purposes of today, I think it's important to teach you guys about the lawful basis that I'm assuming most of you are going to rely upon. So the 3 lawful bases that I'm just going to review quickly are consent, affirmative consent, to fulfill a contract, that's number 2, or a legitimate interest that outweighs the interests of the other person. Okay, so essentially you have to have like one of those 3 legal bases in order to be collecting and processing somebody's personal data. So which one do you guys think I'm going to focus on today, right? So I'm going to focus on consent. And the next like most popular one is probably to fulfill a contract, because you want to think of that as like somebody fills out the form on your website to get your freebie, and then you deliver your freebie. That's you taking their personal data and processing their personal data to fulfill a contract, because you're sending them your freebie. Another example would be like if somebody purchases a DIY legal template on your site, they have to fill in their information, and then you send them an email instantly with an awesome template and a how-to video tutorial, and that's you fulfilling a contract, right? That's why you're emailing them. They've asked for something, they've paid for it, now you're just fulfilling. This also, by the way, applies to free stuff. So it's not just paid. That's why I gave the example of the freebie and the example of the paid product. I'm not sure if anybody's writing questions or not, because I'm not seeing them. So if you are writing questions, just so you know, I will definitely write them, respond to you guys after, but you can always email me too. So it's no biggie. So today we're going to talk all about consent, the number 1 or the first one, and probably the most popular legal basis for processing and taking somebody's personal data. So in the past, the way that we have always done this, just to give you an example of like how we've basically not gotten consent, to be perfectly honest with you, is that somebody went on our website and then they downloaded our free Legally Legit guide, for example, just shooting it out there, and they then got added to our general email list. So we started emailing them every week or month or whatever, however often you email your list, right? But you weren't just emailing them about the Legally Legit guide. You also, hopefully, if you're super savvy, you were also sending them a nurture sequence, like a welcome sequence, after you've sent them your freebie. You might have even started to pitch them your free call or some kind of paid service or product or whatever it is, right? So that's the way that we've always handled this in the past. We've basically taken consent and run with it. And remember that for the purposes of the GDPR and like today's training and everything, that's pretty much still okay as long as the person's not located within the EU, or you're not located in the EU, because if you're located in the EU, definitely can't do that. If you're not located within the EU, then you just can't do that anymore to people who are located within the EU or whose location is unknown, right? So just keep that in mind. I know, like, I feel like I have to keep coming back to it because this has come up so often. It came up so often in the training I did yesterday. People are just like really nervous about this, and they really need to know that this, if you are not located in the EU, only applies to those people whose personal data you're collecting who are in the EU. Oh, and before I move forward on this, the reason I wanted to mention this, because I've gotten so many questions from people being like, well, why don't I just like block people from the EU from being able to like join my list? Or why don't I just tell people like, don't fill out this form if you're not from the EU, or put a note on my website that says like, I don't work with people there, or something like that, right? The reason that doesn't work is because of the way the internet works. So anybody can go on your website anytime, which is also super cool. part about the way we do business, but anybody can go on your website at any time. And it's not just about opting into your freebie. So it's not just, or like your email list or buying something from you or working with you. That's not the only thing we're talking about here. We're also talking about just even browsing your site. So it can be something as simple as browsing your site, and we really can't prevent people. And I don't think that we want to do that either, right? So also, I think that after you leave today's training, you're going to be like, oh, that's it. Those are the 4 steps I have to take. I'm good. I'll just get that done. And then I don't have to block out a bunch of traffic or potential clients or whatever else, right? And I'm going to mix so much of this stuff today with some marketing tips so that I'm not just leaving you in the dust. Like, I hate being one of those people that just tells people like, don't do this, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you got to change this, or like all this scary legal stuff. I'm always throwing stuff your way to let you know, like, well, you can't do it that way, but here's what you should do. Or like, here's a great marketing tip of how you can kind of overcome this, right? So we're going to talk about that a lot. But I just wanted to note that really quickly. So we went over the fact that in the past, we kind of took everybody and threw them onto a general list. For the people in the EU, we can't do that anymore. So we can't throw the EU people, as I'm calling them. And by the way, it's like no offense at all to people in the EU. It's just like so brutal to have to say this stuff over and over again. So I'm just using the term EU people. I'm not categorizing you all as like one contiguous group of people. You know what I mean? So if you are located within the EU, can't do this for anybody anymore. For the rest of us, we can't do it for EU people. We now need consent for each, what I'm calling category of our marketing, right? So for example, if we send out our like weekly newsletter list, maybe it's like inspirational and informational, educational content, something like that. But then we also run some like challenges or marketing promotions, sell products from time to time, or advertise in some other way, like maybe we run affiliate stuff or something like that. I would break it down into categories. So for me, I'm breaking it into 2. I'm breaking it into like newsletter category and then like marketing category. So really when I'm emailing people, I'm just emailing them like information, helpful resources, tips, invites to my community, or I'm telling them like, hey, I have a new template out, or like a new product, or a new course called Fearlessly Legal. So I'm breaking my categories into 2. Essentially the way that the GDPR works now, we need to have consent for each of those categories. So it's no longer the case that just by somebody opting into our freebie, we just assume that they've now consented to receiving our newsletter and receiving our marketing promotions. You actually have to go ahead and get affirmative, what's called affirmative consent, specific and unambiguous consent for each of those, like what I would call categories of the types of emails that you want to send out to people. So it's super important that you keep that in mind as we go forward. So it's really hard to get consent for all of those things all at once, right? So we're going to talk through some ways and like break down some ways today that you can do that in a super easy way. I have some tips and tricks up my sleeve, I think, maybe, I don't know, we'll find out. And then also I'm going to tell you a little bit about like how I'm doing this, how I've been talking to clients about doing this, all of that kind of stuff. And just remember that for your freebie, that is not consent to receive your regular newsletter or any marketing. It is, though, consent to receive your freebie. So a lot of people have been asking me that, like, do I have to get separate? No, because by them looking at a box on your website or a form or a landing page that says, like, get my legally legit guide by entering your name and email below, and then they enter their name and email below and hit submit, that's their consent for the freebie. It's just that you need to know that that's where the consent stops for EU people now, thanks to the GDPR. So they've really only given you their consent to receive the freebie. And I'll just jump ahead and answer some frequently asked questions. No, you can't tell them that they can't receive the freebie unless they also consent to the other emails. You can't hold the freebie hostage. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we're also going to talk about like putting check boxes on your forms or your landing pages and all that stuff. Just some like general housekeeping notes. They can't be pre-checked if you go like the box route or a drop-down menu. The default can't be yes to receive your stuff. And also silence or inaction cannot be interpreted in any way as consent. So if they don't check anything, for example, like you just have them left unchecked, or they have two options like yes, no, and like blank, and they leave it blank or say no, then you can't. So just know that I know like that was like the number one question I've been getting so far. So I wanted to jump in. But remember, we need affirmative and independent action. We need affirmative consent for each type of category that you're contacting them. So think about that. Like affirmative consent requires like you to take some action. So pre-checking a box is not asking someone to take an action. Having an unchecked box where someone has to check it, that's an affirmative action. So we'll talk about that. So I also wanted to, so I'm going to like start to go into my 4 steps. I have like 4 super easy steps, like what you do with your current list, what you do moving forward, what you do with your privacy policy, all that kind of stuff. Right before I move into that, I just want to tell you that there are a couple of things that are very unclear about the GDPR. So I was a corporate attorney when I practiced. I was not a privacy law attorney. There aren't too many of those out there. I'm not a GDPR expert. I don't know anybody that is because it hasn't even been enforced yet or come into compliance period yet. So if anybody is telling you they're a GDPR expert, don't listen to them. We're all just doing our best where we're reading this stuff and we're like, huh? What are you talking about? That's pretty much how I felt like a couple of weeks ago when I read the whole dang thing. There are a lot of things about this that are super unclear, but also like if you guys know anything about the way that the law works in general, we don't really know how something's going to be enforced, interpreted, implemented, all that kind of stuff until it actually comes out. So once it comes out, and the first company or something gets sued, there's going to be a lot of news and buzz about like, oh, we didn't know that that's what that meant, or oh, that doesn't apply to us. Oh, okay. We're going to learn a lot about that in the future. Just know that like we don't know everything right now, and we're trying to figure this out. Basically, we're just working with text. Lots and lots and lots of boring text, right? So it hasn't been enforced yet. There's also a big unknown as to another requirement that is written in the GDPR that's called a GDPR representative. So the way that the GDPR reads right now, it says that people outside the EU, that means us or me, that we need to have what's called a GDPR representative. So essentially that would be like somebody I would pay who's located within the EU to be my GDPR representative. However, there's a like exception, a loophole for people who only occasionally process personal data. Well, you want to know the super fun part about this? They forgot, or I don't know if they forgot, maybe they intentionally did it. I have no idea, but they just didn't define the term occasionally processed. So well, we have no idea what that means. Like, do I only occasionally process because if you have a list of 2,000 people and 50 of them are in the EU, and who knows how many will be left after I run this like consent campaign, then what does that mean? Is that occasional? I don't know. Is it based on like the number of times we email them? I don't know. So we're trying to figure that out. I think we'll hopefully learn more about that in the future. Just note that I don't know the answer because there is no answer. And that just might be something that we have to put a little asterisk around. Also, if you in your business, as you are listening to this today, do any kind of what I would call like sensitive data collection of any sort. So you collect data about children. I actually have a very specific list here, so I'm going to go over it because just to be clear. So if you collect personal data about children, or if you collect personal data about race, politics, religion, trade union membership, genetic data, biometric data, sex life or sexual orientation, criminal conviction or offenses, or philosophical beliefs, like I don't understand that, then you've got a whole other thing going on. So then if you collect any of that kind of data, you need to look into the GDPR much beyond this training, and even beyond the training, the 3-part video training that's going to be included in Fearlessly Legal now. Because that type of data is treated differently by the GDPR because it's like sensitive data essentially. It also, the GDPR also has special provisions in it related to people who are located in the EU. So if you're watching this and you are in the EU, if you are transferring personal data to third countries or to international organizations. So you might think like, no, I'm not doing that. But if you live in France, I only use France as an example because I just lived there for a while and I loved it. So if you are in France and you, for example, use like ConvertKit, I'm pretty sure your information's processed in Idaho where ConvertKit is located. So that would probably be the transfer of personal data outside the EU. If that is you, or you transfer it to any other kind of company like Zapier, who's in the US, and I don't know, all other kinds of companies, that's another example where you really need to look into this much beyond this training. So obviously, like businesses with over 250 employees, if anybody's in here and has over 250 employees, let me know. That's pretty awesome. And then companies whose core activities include processing large scales of data. So that's like the companies like Google and Facebook and all that fun jazz. I mean, those are really the people that I think this stuff is aimed towards, but people keep asking me like, I mean, they're not going to come after us, right? Like, who cares about us? They don't care about us. Yeah, I get what you mean. And I think like the reasonable part of me believes that and hopes, probably just hopes that. I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking. But I think the bigger issue is that it can, right? It does apply to us and they can come after us. I'm not about fear. Do not get me wrong. I am not somebody that's like, watch out, they're coming after you. That's not my thing, and that's not what I'm trying to tell you. It's just like you have to know that that's a possibility because technically speaking, it applies to you. As long as you're processing the personal data of anyone located in the EU, they could. So until then, we just have to deal with it. I don't know. That's kind of the way I think about it. And frankly, the way that I'm going to break this down, starting now, I think you're just going to be like, oh, all right, I can do this. I can tackle it. And you definitely can. You can tackle this, I swear. And I'm here to help you as much as humanly possible. The people in the group are here to help you. And I also have like loads of technology people if you need references for people to help get this stuff done for you. So steps, I'm going to go over these 4 major steps that you need to take. All right. So if you have a pen and paper, it's a good time to grab it. I'll give you a second. Take some drink of my kombucha here. Guava. Anybody try this one? It's really good. Okay. So this is where you really want to get your pencils ready, kids, because I'm going to go over these 4 steps that you should take to move forward with the GDPR and to get into compliance by May 25th. And when I say May 25th, I really mean May 24th because as we talked about earlier, the processing of personal data, the compliance date is May 25th, and deleting is considered processing. Deleting is considered processing. So that means that if someone wasn't supposed to be on your list or they don't consent to being on it in the future, deleting them anytime from May 25th onwards is a violation. So they need to be deleted prior to May 25th. So really in your calendars, you want to like May 24th, right? So that's the time that we really want to get a lot of this stuff done. It needs to be in compliance by then. So we'll talk it over. Okay. So steps 1 through 3 of the 4 are really related to your email list and your email list building strategies. So we're going to talk over those really quick. So remember, when we're talking about consent today, we're talking about the consent of the EU people on your list if you're not located within the EU, or everybody if you are. We're talking about both your current list, anybody who's opted in, whether they opted in like 7 years ago from France, or whether they opted in yesterday from France or on May 27th, we're talking about them. Because the GDPR applies to people who whose personal data we have right now, because the point is if they're on our list as of May 25th, then we have their personal data. So you guys need to be concerned about, or thinking about, I don't mean concerned in the worried sense, but thinking about the people who are on your current list or who you currently have the personal data of, and then the people all moving forward. So I know sometimes when laws come out, they won't be like retroactive or anything like that. And this isn't really like retroactive, it's just that it applies to people who are going to be on your list as of May 25th. They don't really care when they got there in the first place. So we're talking about current list and future lists and list building. We need affirmative and specific consent. Delivery emails are okay. I'm just going to go ahead and like put that right up at the front. So for the most part, under my reading of the GDPR, if somebody signs up for your freebie and then you're sending them an email with the freebie, that's okay. What we're more concerned about is like your follow-up sequence and any additional emails that you might send them anytime after that, basically. So your delivery emails are okay. And then who are we talking about on your list? So if I had a quiz function here, I would quiz you guys, but I can't. So who are we talking about on your list? So if you are outside the EU, we're just talking about the people on your list who are in the EU. If you are in the EU, the person that I'm speaking to today, hi, then we are talking about everybody on your list. Whether I'm on your list, People in Spain are on your list, people in Sweden on your, everybody. We're talking about everybody if you're in the EU. If you're outside the EU, just EU people, or the unknowns. Those are mysterious unknown people. I don't know where they come from. I'm very curious to find out. Okay, so if you're not in the EU, if you're one of me or something similar, then you want to start with step one. If you are in the EU, you can just listen to this because it's important, but you can essentially skip to step number 2. But for everybody else, if you're not located within the EU, you need to start at step number 1. So if you are in the EU, let me go back. If you are not in the EU, if you're not in the EU, step number 1 is to segment your list. Okay, that is step number 1. You basically need to get a good working idea of like who the heck you're dealing with here, right? So if you have 500 people on your list, you need to know how many of those people are located within the EU or are in an undisclosed location. This part is so dependent on like the technology that you use, the email system or whatever. I use ConvertKit, and this is like not a plug for ConvertKit at all, although I am totally obsessed with them. But ConvertKit is making this super easy, and I know that a bunch of other people are as well. But I know like in ConvertKit, you can now tag people based on geographic location. So the way that I did this was literally like 2 clicks. I went into my list, took the whole list, and said like, find anyone located within the EU, find anyone whose location is unknown, those very strange unknown people, and then tag them as EU/unknown. That's it. That was step number 1 for me. So that's how I did it. If you have a similar email service or if you already have ConvertKit, then that's how you do it. So it's super, super easy. So you're just trying to segment. If in step number 1, if you are not located within the EU, that is step number 1, you need to segment and basically identify who you're dealing with, and that's very important for step number 2. That's why we're doing this way, and it's going to be really important moving forward, frankly. It should also be set up in a way, if you guys aren't like too super technology savvy, then talk to your website developer about this, but it should also be set up in a way that's like, I don't know, never-ending cycle. I don't know what you would call it, but like basically the way that I have it set up is so that anyone who's coming into my email list in the future is also added to that tag. So it shouldn't just stop, because remember, we're not just concerned about who's already on our list, we're concerned about all the future people too. So you want to go through and segment. Now we're going to move on to step number 2. So everybody has to do step number 2. So everybody can hop back in. So for step number 2, we need to get affirmative and specific consent from those people that we just tagged as being, or that we've segmented in some way as being located within the EU or unknown, or if we're in the EU, then from everybody. So this is where the big pain in the butt comes from all of you located within the EU. You have to go back and get affirmative consent from everybody for everything. Oof, that's brutal. It's brutal. It's really hard, and it's really going to affect people's email lists. It's so frustrating. I feel your pain. I really do. But I think that for the most of us that are watching this today, we're probably not located within the EU. So for us, we're just worried about the people on our list who are and who are unknowns. And so we need to go back. We essentially have to like claw back and get affirmative and specific consent from them to receive our other kinds of emails, right? So you don't have to worry about like, clawing back and getting their, like affirmative consent for the freebie, because they've gotten that. And that, remember, the legal basis for that was fulfilling a contract. But for this, you need to get their affirmative consent for the other, like what I'm calling categories of emails that you send out. So for example, the way that I would probably do this is that you would reach out and get affirmative consent to receive your future newsletter campaigns or emails, and also to get promotional or advertising marketing emails from you, whatever you want to call it. And you can jazz up, remember, you can't be misleading at all. Like there's no trickery here. It has to be super specific. But with like the marketing promotional ones, you can call it like, and receive promotional emails from me. But in parentheses, you could jazz it up by saying something like, I send out like the best offers and exclusive offers or coupons or whatever it is that you do to my list, or like you guys are the first to know when something's coming out, or to get on the wait list, get the best price. You can like, sell it. You can jazz it up. They just need to know what it is. That's the point. It really just has to be clear and unambiguous. So I personally would do this, and this is just a marketing tip, it's not a legal tip of any variety. I would do this through like a 1 to 3 email sequence. If you're going to do a multiple email sequence to them to try to get their affirmative consent, I would start out by providing a lot of value. So give me a thumbs up if you guys think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea. So I like the idea of reminding people like why they want to be here in the first place, right? So like, what are you all about? Remind them why you're here. Remind them what you do. Remind them about that like awesome freebie that you only emailed out to your list recently or something like that. So I think that's a great way to kick this off. And to let them know, like, you don't want to leave my list, do you? You want to be here. I send out all this awesome stuff, but now I need your affirmative consent. You don't have to call it affirmative consent, but that's essentially what you're doing. So I would plot it out. I would do like 1 to 3, probably 3 if you're going to do like one value email. Maybe create a little checklist, a little freebie for them. That's just my tip of the day. Maybe create a little something for them and say, hey, EU people, I love you guys, and I want to offer you this amazing freebie because you don't want to leave, do you? All right, so like remind them why they even want to be there. Remind them why they came to the party in the first place. I would definitely, this again, like really depends on the service that you use and like how your technology works and all that fun stuff. But I know for me with ConvertKit, the way I'm going to do this is like send them a nice little email, remind them why they want to be there, probably pop in a freebie of some variety, and then say, like, if you want to continue to receive emails from me, thanks to the GDPR, I'm going to go ahead and need you to consent to the following. Like, if you want to receive my email newsletter each week, click here, and then have it be like a link. And the way that I have that set up is that if somebody clicks on the link, it tags them. So now remember, going back, I have everybody just based on geographic location tagged as being an EU or an unknown person. And so when I send out this affirmative consent email, then when they click on that link, it's going to take them from being the EU/unknown people, and it's going to move them to a tag that's I labeled GDPR newsletter consent. And then my second link right under that would say, if you'd also like to receive promotional marketing messages from me, including announcements about my latest DIY legal templates, my Fearlessly Legal course, and other special offers and promotions that I only email to my list, or I don't know, something like that, click here. And then that would be a second tag. So I've set this up in ConvertKit. I basically decided that I have 2 categories of emails, their newsletter and like marketing. So, and really they're so mixed, it's kind of confusing. But anyway, so that second one is tagging them as GDPR marketing consent. So that's just the way that I'm doing it. I am not telling you that this is a perfectly GDPR compliant way of doing business because I am not Nostradamus. I know that's hard to believe, but I am not. And so I don't know how this is all going to go down, but I am, being super clear and super upfront and asking for this affirmative consent. So I would do that like a couple of times. I think most of the people I've been talking to, some of the bigger players too in the space, are doing this through about 3 emails. And remember, you want to drop people off of these emails as they consent. So if somebody clicks to consent in the first one, you don't want to send them the second one. Especially because that makes it super awkward, because now if they don't click the second time, like, what does that mean? Did they not want it? Did they want it? It's weird. So don't do that. Just have them set it up, or whoever does this stuff for you, have them set it up in a way where the people are dropping out of the email sequence as they consent. Now here's the important part. One of the more important parts, after this sequence, even if you just send out 1 email or like however you do it, after you do all of that, if people don't consent, who are located within the EU or from an unknown location, then you would want to go ahead and completely delete them, completely erase them. So not like, and I know like ConvertKit sent out an email to all of us letting us know about some new feature that they have where we can like physically delete somebody from our list. So you guys know, like, whatever service you use, there's usually like a place you can go that's like unsubscribed, or like people who unsubscribed or whatever, and you can like see their name, but maybe they're crossed out or like grayed out or something like that. That doesn't cut it, because technically speaking, you're still holding their personal data. So according to the GDPR, if they didn't consent through your little campaign that you just ran, or through even your 1 email that you just ran, you actually have to completely delete them. And if you've been paying good attention, you know that you have to do this at the latest by May 24th. So you cannot delete them starting May 25th. I mean, you'd have to because you like already didn't have the right to have their information. So I don't really know what you do in that case. But since you're watching this, there's no excuse. Delete them as of May 24th. Set reminders. Have your last email go out on like the, I don't know, early 20s of May, very early. Give yourself some time and delete this stuff. Get them out of there. And for all of you who are saying to me, I don't really care about people who from the EU if they buy my stuff because I do this like very specific thing, or nobody ever buys from me from there or whatever, then what do you care? Delete them, right? So it doesn't matter. The numbers on our list don't matter. It's all about quality. I can't talk anymore. Quality. So we just care about people who want to be there, who want to hear from us, and who hopefully eventually would like to work with us as well. So don't sweat it if people don't consent. They might have not been opening your emails anyway. I don't know. It also depends on like the business that you have to like. My templates are, my contracts really are US driven. Now my privacy policy is kind of international because everybody's subject to the GDPR. But you know, my stuff's like US driven. I have Canadian clients, UK clients, American clients, but for the most part, those are the people that I'm working with. So like, if they don't want to hear from me anymore, it's okay. It's their choice. And they can always come back. So don't worry about it too much. But yes, deleting if no consent's given by the 24th of May. It is also very important to note that in this email sequence, where you're kind of getting affirmative consent from the people who you've now segmented and tagged as being located in the EU or unknown, that every single time you're asking them to go and like click the link or whatever, however you're going to have it set up, maybe you're going to have them fill out another form or do some other thing. Every single time you're asking for that affirmative action, that affirmative consent, whatever, you need to have your privacy policy present. So we're going to get into this in more detail. I just want to give you a preview. This is why privacy policies are becoming even more important than they already were. They were already required and necessary, and you should have a totally legit one, not one of these freebies that I see floating around that are totally terrible and don't cover your business, especially if you have an online business and do some very specific things. But you already should have had one. But this is going to be like the big game changer because you have to have a link to your privacy policy everywhere that you're asking for personal data, everywhere that you're collecting personal data. Yep. So in those emails that you're sending out, that you're saying like, click here or like fill out this form or head to this page or whatever to give me consent for all these different categories of my email, you have to have a little link to your privacy policy in that email, in the email. And I would put it as like a sentence below those, not in the footer, not like how you do it on your website. I think it should really be like conspicuous. I think it should be right there. So it should say like something like here at Samvanderwielen LLC, or like our company takes seriously our privacy policy, which you can view here, or like our company follows the following privacy policy, and then like make the term privacy policy a link. So I'm going to talk a lot about that in step 4, but just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay, so step 1 was segment. Step 2 was get affirmative consent from those people that you've just segmented by a short, maybe a little campaign to them, providing lots of value, letting them know why they're here, why they want to be here, and getting their affirmative consent very specifically for the different types of emails or email marketing that you do. Okay, so we're moving on to step number 3, which is all about moving forward, which at this point I am so excited to move forward and not have to look back and like worry about this stuff anymore. It's just going to be the new way of doing business, right? So moving forward. So basically like anytime from the time you're watching this training, moving on, because as soon as you implement this and like email all the people that were on your list, basically from that date forward, you have to have like your new system in place. But definitely by May 25th, you need specific, unambiguous, and affirmative consent on on any legal basis, right? So you want to make sure that you are getting their consent or some other, you're getting their personal data thanks to some other legal basis, i.e. Fulfilling a contract. So even moving forward, it will be okay for you to fulfill like sending them the freebie still, because that they're asking for it and now you're emailing it to them, but it's not okay to email them your sequence or your other emails without the affirmative consent. So the reason that I'm focusing on consent and the reason that I talked about that so much earlier was because in my mind, this is the one for so many online marketers and online entrepreneurs that I work with and that I know are in the community. This is like how you guys do business, basically. You're doing like opt-ins and freebies and landing pages and courses and programs and all of that good stuff, right? And you have websites. So that's why I'm focusing on consent, but just by no means, like, don't misunderstand me that that's the only legal basis. It's just the one that I'm covering today because we would be here for like 1900 years. And I don't want to bore you or lose you, but also that's why I created the 3-part video training series that I did for Fearlessly Legal for my course, because for those of you who like really need to get into this stuff and want to learn all the nitty gritty, that's going to be the option for you. This is really trying to like not make you fall asleep. Maybe you're already asleep. I don't know. Okay, so for step number 3, moving forward, we're going to put into place opportunities for people to consent like everywhere we can, right? So I have to differentiate here between EU people and non-EU people. If you are located in the EU, I would do all of this stuff that I'm about to talk about. If you're not in the EU, so if you're somebody like me, I would pick like 1 to 2 of these places, and to the best of your ability, depending on the technology that you use or the service providers that you use, I would have it show up to only EU people at all. Like, I wouldn't even say, I was almost going to say when possible. I would just make that kind of a hard and fast rule. Honestly, this would be something like if I didn't have access to that kind of technology already, like if I was using some email marketing service that didn't provide these options, I would switch. It would be that worth it to me. For like ConvertKit's like $29 a month. It gives you like all the email marketing and the landing pages and the forms. It'd be totally worth it at this point just for the technology, because this is going to be brutal. And the reason that this is super awkward, I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, the reason this is super awkward for non-EU people is because if you show these consent boxes, like the check boxes or drop-down menus or links or whatever, to people who aren't located in the EU. So say you're an American entrepreneur and then these checkboxes are showing up on your forms everywhere, to even to people like in California and Florida, wherever. That's kind of weird, right? Because now if it shows them those checkboxes and they don't check it, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that they had the opportunity to consent and now they didn't? So does that mean they don't want to receive your emails? I don't know. That's a super awkward relationship. It also puts you in a little bit of a pickle because you didn't need to get their consent if they're not in the EU. And now you went and tried to get it and didn't get it. And now you're in this like awkward in-between phase. So to the best of your ability, this stuff that we're about to talk about, kind of the 4 major options that I'm going to give you of like where you can put opportunities for people in the EU to give you consent, you should really try to utilize technology where possible that only shows this stuff to people who are seeing your forms and your pages and your site or whatever in the EU. So there are really like 4 major places that you can add an option for somebody in the EU to offer you their consent to receiving your other categories of email marketing messages. So the first and foremost, I would say, are on like the actual forms themselves, like the little boxes that you guys have people fill out on your website. Or the landing page. So like, I know for me, sometimes I'll have a form and a landing page so that I have a link to send people for like my Legally Legit guide, for example. And so you could do this through the landing pages, sales pages, forms, all that kind of stuff. So really for this step number 1, or part number 1, I would say that this is like the place where you're initially taking people in and taking their personal data, wherever that is. I would add or think about whether you can add or have your web designer do for you, add a checkbox option and or a drop-down menu. So I've seen this done both ways. I personally am doing the checkbox option just because that's what's made available to me through ConvertKit. So through ConvertKit, there is now only showing up for people located within the EU or whose location's unknown. a checkbox to receive, and it's unchecked, a checkbox to receive my email marketing newsletter, and then promotional, like advertising, marketing, salesy emails from me. So those are 2 additional boxes that only show up when somebody in the EU is looking at my forms. So if you're looking at the form, that stuff should be showing. If it's not, let me know. So that should be showing. And then if they check it, it automatically tags them in my system as having consented already. If they don't, then I still can send them the freebie because that they're asking for that, and that's fulfilling a contract. It's under a different legal basis, not consent. It's under fulfilling a contract. So maybe I missed the consent window there, but now I would like to try to get it maybe once in some other place, right? So if you're not in the EU and you don't get it on that first initial form or landing page or whatever, you can still have the opportunity, like you have to email them their freebie anyway, right? So you might as well try again there. Like maybe they missed it, or maybe after they get your freebie and they download it, they realize how amazing it is, and so now they want your other emails or something like that. So you can give them that opportunity. I just wouldn't follow up with additional emails after that. So the first option was like the landing page, the form itself. The second option would be your thank you or redirect page. So this would be a great place where, like, if you can't utilize the checkbox or drop down menu technology, then I would have it so that if somebody opted into my freebie, and that's fine because you're fulfilling their contract of wanting the freebie, when it redirects them to like a thank you page, I would say like, thanks so much for joining my Legally Legit guide, or for grabbing my Legally Legit guide. If you would like to receive my newsletter, marketing, emails, put your name and email here. If you'd like to receive marketing and promotions from me, put your email here, or whatever. The tricky thing with that is that you guys would have to figure out if you could only show that page to people in the EU. So if you could differentiate between them, maybe your web designer can do that, maybe not. I don't know if they can redirect based on IP address. That sounds complicated. I don't know. So that's just something to think about, but to me, that's not the ideal option. To me, the more ideal option would be step number 3, because you have to deliver the freebie anyway, because you can't withhold the freebie for them not giving consent on the first go around. So you're going to email them the freebie anyway and be like, hey, Julia, here's your free Legally Legit guide. Like, click here to download, blah, blah, blah. And be like, oh, I wanted to let you know from time to time, or like every week, I email out and share helpful resources and tips and tricks. I show you how to get legally legit, blah, blah, blah. And like, this is what I email my list about. In the past, I've been known to send out random free resources to my list that I don't share anywhere else, exclusive resources. If you'd like to be on this list, then I need you to fill out this form, or like click here, or whatever. And again, it would be great if you can do it. That should only show to people in the EU. So not everybody should get that kind of email, because you don't need that kind of consent from anybody else if they're not located within the EU or unknown. So the way that I'm doing that is, because they get geotagged as soon as they get their freebie, they're going to like go over to a separate sequence essentially. So if you do all this stuff yourself, then you hopefully already know how to do this. If not, then I would definitely hire someone or talk to your web designer or something like that. So yeah, the delivery email is the third option. I think that's the better. Personally, I would go the original landing page or form if you can do it, and then the delivery email. If you don't have the functionality to have the checkbox or anything like that on your original form or landing page, then I would just put it in the delivery email if I was not in the EU. Again, if I was in the EU, I would do all this stuff, because you guys are going to be losing people, like leaking like a sieve. So you want to be collecting people as much as possible and hitting them as many times as you can naturally throughout the process without overkill. I would say the final option of where you could try to get consent when people are opting in through your freebie and all that kind of stuff, and this really to me is only an option for EU people, because I don't know how you would differentiate between like who you would send the freebie to. Although I guess if you were geotagging them like me, I could do a different freebie for those people, for the EU people or the unknowns. And I was thinking that you could include a link in the freebie itself. So you could have a link that would be like, hey, if you haven't already, click here to make sure that you get my weekly newsletter emails, something like that. Okay, so last but not least, we are moving on to step number 4. So step number 1 was segment. Step number 2 was do a little engagement campaign with the people that you've just segmented to get their affirmative consent. Step 3 is coming up with an affirmative consent system moving forward. And then step 4 is all about your privacy policy. So this is where the privacy policy really takes a change because over what we were doing before. And remember, as I said before, you already needed a privacy policy. So the US doesn't have a law that's like the GDPR. Nowhere that I know of has a law that's like the GDPR. But what we do have is a California state law called CalAPA, which requires us, if anybody from California can go on our site or opt into our list or any of that kind of stuff, all the same stuff we've been talking about today, then we were already required to let them know about this as is. So if you don't have a privacy policy already, it doesn't matter if you don't have anybody from the EU on your list or anything like that. You still need a privacy policy. And these like freebie ones or the cut and paste ones and all that stuff, they just don't cut it because there's so many places in the privacy policy that you have to make specific to you and how you do business and how you process personal information. And that's only going to get worse with the GDPR. So if you don't already, this is definitely a time to invest. It's a short investment, get it over with, get it done. Somebody did it for you and put it up on your site. So first things first, it needs to be available, the privacy policy needs to be made available at the time that you're collecting the personal information or you're asking for their consent or their personal information to be input somewhere. So think about it like on those landing pages that we were all talking about, your forms, your website, your emails when you're sending out that time when you're saying like click here to be added to my email list or whatever, or to receive my newsletter list. Those times are all the times that where we have to now include a link to our privacy policy. So we're going to be using it a lot more often. I also just wanted to use this as like a general reminder that the privacy policy, if you've got it from me or from somebody else or whatever, it's not just for your website. You can also use it on things like your landing pages. You should use it on, especially now, especially thanks to the GDPR, but this was like even before. If you run an online course, like my Fearlessly Legal course, like stuff like that, you want to use your privacy policy because you're collecting personal information in all of those places. So that's super important. Okay, so there are a number of things that you now must have or that you must add to your privacy policy thanks to the GDPR. So we're going to go over those. So if you want to make some notes, this is a good place to make some notes. Let me know everybody's still alive by giving me some sort of thumbs up or something. Let me know you're still here. I haven't put you to sleep yet. That would be good to know. I'm definitely trying the best I can. This stuff, there's only so much you can do. Oh, thanks whoever gave me a heart. I appreciate it. You're kind soul. Okay, so step number 4, we're talking about the privacy policy, stuff that you have to have in your privacy policy. There's someone that's sad and angry. There's like, we got all kinds of stuff. I'm sorry if I made you angry, or maybe just the GDPR made you angry. I don't know. I didn't write it, that's for sure. Okay. So the things that you have to have or add to your privacy policy are summarized as follows. I'm not going over every single little thing because frankly, you guys don't need to know all of this stuff. You just need to like have one done for you, but that's just my opinion. So first and foremost, they have to know who to contact. So it's really easy just like right up front to let them know, and really you should have had this already. If you have my privacy policy template, then you have this already. But there should be like a very simple sentence stating at the beginning exactly the name and email address or whatever contact info of the person in their company, in your company, that they can contact if they have any questions about not only your privacy policy, but the handling of their personal information. So that's first and foremost. You need to put the name of your GDPR representative if you need one. So remember we talked about that in the beginning. We're not really sure if you guys, if all of us that are not located within the EU need a GDPR representative who's located within the EU because we don't know what the definition is or what they meant by occasional processing of people in the EU's personal data. Yeah, we just don't know. But if we did need it, then that has to be there. Okay. So you also need to tell people what information that you collect about them and your legal basis for doing so. And it's not just enough to list it like consent. You have to like explain it. And trust me, you don't want to do that. It's boring. You have to let them know what you do with their data, what you do with it, how you handle it, how you protect it. That's a big one. Who you share it with. So you actually have to, and you might think like, I don't share it because I'm not one of those spammy people that sells people's email addresses or their phone number or whatever. you do share it, because if you have ConvertKit, or you have MailChimp, or you have Zapier, or Dubsado, or I don't know, WooCommerce, any other millions of different providers of all different types, you share people's personal information, because basically you're taking it from one place and moving it to another. So really they're in possession of it too, right? So this all applies to them as well. Like, that's why you guys have all been seeing all these companies scramble, because this stuff all applies to them as well. So you have to let them know who you share it with. And then you finally have to list out the 6 rights under the GDPR that people in the EU are afforded under the GDPR. And you don't just have to list them. You actually, there are some like intricacies of how you have to tell people like what you do with that right. For example, I'll give you one of the 6 is about like how long you keep and process their data. And so it's not just like a blanket statement, like you actually have to do some research or have like a policy. You have to have a policy essentially. So just a shameless plug for like my templates. The cool thing about them is like I list out these 6 rights for you, but then I prompt you to be like, this is where you need to explain what you're going to do with this, or like insert the number of days here, or do this. And I go through all the rights with you so that you can actually like set them, because copying and pasting these from somebody else's is not going to cut it, because I guarantee you your policy is not the same as theirs. So just don't do it, kids. Just don't do it. Okay, so the other thing about the privacy policy, in addition to all that stuff that I just went over that you have to like add or change or beef up or whatever, is that now it pretty much has to go everywhere. And we've talked about that. I feel pretty comfortable that we've mentioned that, but it essentially has to go everywhere. It has to be made available every time somebody is consenting, opting in, providing you with personal data, right? Every time they're providing you personal data, there has to be an easy and conspicuous link to your privacy policy, which has to have all this stuff in it. So with that, wasn't that fun? That was the GDPR for the most part. I mean, that is like a super basic, believe it or not. I know that was a lot of information. I know it sounds crazy and overwhelming. For some reason, I am not seeing any comments at all. I hate Facebook. So if it's not coming through at all, so I'm not seeing anything, or maybe nobody's commenting. I don't know. I doubt that's true. But so I just want to let you guys know that first and foremost, I want to let you know about 2 exciting offers. So I want to let you know about 2 things that I have that are going to make your life a lot easier. It really just depends on what kind of person you are who's watching this, because I have clients who are really client A and client B. Honestly, I have both, and I love them equally and dearly. So I have clients who are like, I do not want to do any of this stuff myself. Like, please take the wheel, do it yourself, right? Like, they don't want to do this stuff other than maybe filling in a couple of blanks and like moving forward. They really don't care about learning the information. I don't judge at all, because this is not everybody's cup of tea. Honestly, you don't always have to know all of this stuff. There are certain things I think you kind of need to know. You don't all need to get into the same level of detail. It's really like dependent on you. But honestly, it's like all about what makes you feel most confident. So if it just makes you feel most confident to like have the document you need and move forward, then you're going to be the person that wants to listen to this first thing I have to tell you about. If you're the kind of person that's like, no, I need to wrap my hands around this. Like, I need to know what I'm dealing with. I am nervous about this thing, but now that I listen to you, I feel a little bit more confident, but I want to learn more about it and make sure that I really know this stuff, because I am like a power boss CEO and I want to know what I'm doing and stay safe and protect my business, right? So the first thing I would say is that for any of you that are like, I want nothing to do with this, I don't want to do it, I can't really help you in terms of the email sequence part, right? So like all the stuff that we talked about related to like adding your checkboxes in your forms and all of that, you could hire somebody to do all that for you. So there's another person other than me that can do all the techie stuff that you need them to do and take care of all that for you. But in terms of the privacy policy, if you do not want to spend hours and hours wasting your time and then probably getting it wrong anyway, no offense, I love you, but it's just true. If you don't want to do that, then just get my privacy policy template. It's on my site, samvanderwielen.com/shop. There is a standalone privacy policy template option. You can get that one really quick. The instant download comes with the 2-part video tutorial. It's uploaded immediately. It comes with the GDPR section. It comes with a Facebook pixel section, obviously everything else that you need. But it also comes in a discounted bundle that I have. So a lot of people, I think my #1 most purchased thing on my site is the DIY Total Website Solution. So it's a discounted bundle. It's discounted right now, right on my site. And it comes with the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, and the website disclaimer. So it's all 3 of the major website documents that you need for your site ever are right there in a discounted bundle. Takes about $200 off, comes with all those same video tutorials and all that same fun stuff. And so that is a super great deal for just getting them all over with. If you've been thinking about that for a while, you definitely want to think about that some more. So for the people who are interested in that, it's an instant purchase, instant download thing on my site. So you can always just go to my template shop on my site. But if you want to learn more, I can't see the comments right now. Just drop the word template in the comments, template. So if you're only interested in the template or the template bundle, just drop the word template in the comments, and I'll reach out to you directly and answer any questions that you have or tell you whether it's the right fit for you or whatever. So just drop the word template in the comments, not the contracts. Drop the word template in the comments if that's what you're interested in. But if you are somebody who not only wants templates, but also loves to learn this stuff, okay, maybe not loves to learn, that's going too far. I understand not loving to learn it, but you feel like you're more confident when you learn it, you feel empowered, and you feel like it's just super easy to understand, and it allows you to move forward in some area of your business now that you've wrapped your hands around it. And maybe you find me like mildly amusing or pleasant to deal with, or just like not that bad to deal with, and you think that maybe I break stuff down in a way that makes it a little bit easier to understand. I know a lot of my clients have commented on that, and I hope that I was able to do that not only today, but in everything else that I do. So if you are one of those people, I have an awesome opportunity for you to join Fearlessly Legal. So Fearlessly Legal is my new course. It's actually an online course. You get instant access to everything in the course immediately upon signing up. It's over 20 video modules. It's definitely geared towards US entrepreneurs, that's for sure, mostly service-based businesses. There are tons of modules in there teaching you everything from like the initial startup of your business to how to have legally legit client relationships, group programs, online courses. I teach you all about trademarks, copyright, email marketing, GDPR, so much more. But the cool thing about it is not that you have to like go in and learn all this stuff right now, but all of the women, the dozens and dozens of women who have entered Fearlessly Legal in the last couple of weeks have told me that they just think it's really cool that they can like dip in when they need to, learn what they need when they need it, and then get out. So they've been going in because they're going to offer a group program soon. They watch the group program module and then they get back out, and then they go back in, they watch something else. You have lifetime access. So not only do you have lifetime access, you also get lifetime updates. There are over 20 video modules, 23 video modules with this new 3-part GDPR video training. And then you also get loads of printables and resources like workbooks and worksheets and all that fun stuff, because I wanted to be a teacher when I was a kid. So I really like worksheets and I like printable stuff. I'm pretty old school. So hopefully that somebody else feels that way too. So that is the Fearlessly Legal option. That's just for the course. There are no templates included in that option. It's just the course. There's a ton in there, but maybe if you already have lots of templates or like you don't care about it, I don't know, then Fearlessly Legal course only is a great option for you. You want to drop FL in the comments if you want to learn more. But if you are somebody who wants not only Fearlessly Legal, because you think like having access to that kind of information would be super helpful, but you also want legal templates, I have an awesome new option in a package called the Ultimate Bundle. And it is ultimate because it's the biggest thing that I offer, because now the Ultimate Bundle includes Fearlessly Legal, so it includes everything that we just talked about, all those video modules, the 3-part GDPR training series, all of the printables and resources, plus 9 DIY legal templates, which are on my site. So it comes with the privacy policy, the one that we've been talking about. It also comes with the other 2 major website docs, the website disclaimer and the terms and conditions. It comes with the one-on-one client agreement, a client services agreement. It comes with a group program agreement. It comes with terms of use, which is what you use if you're going to run an online course or program or something that's evergreen or sell products. It comes with an affiliate agreement. It comes with a mini disclaimer, and it comes with an independent contractor agreement. So I think that's all of them. I think that's 9. So it comes with all 9 of those. You get instant access to all 9 of those templates. For a lot of them, it actually comes with multiple versions of those templates, because I created some different versions, like if you're a health coach or specifically in business to business or whatever else, fitness maybe, nutrition. there are different versions in there, and I've kept going in and updating them as people have had questions or have offered like awesome feedback. And the cool thing about getting the Ultimate Bundle is that you not only get Fearlessly Legal, you get all of these DIY legal templates, but then you keep getting all of the updates and additions that I keep making. So for example, if you would have already had this or had the privacy policy, you would have gotten the updates for the GDPR. So I can't say that they're going to include like every single update to every single law forever and ever and ever, because that would be exhausting. But the GDPR has been a long time coming. It was in place already when people bought my templates. So that is the kind of customer service that I provide that is included for sure. And so I want to let everyone know about that. If you are interested in either Fearlessly Legal, the course, or the Fearlessly Legal and the 9 DIY legal templates, what I call the Ultimate Bundle, just drop an FL in the comments or Fearlessly Legal, whichever you want, and let me know, because I will get in touch with you in case you have any questions. If you don't have any questions and you're like ready to go because you're a rock star, then I have already dropped, it should have dropped while I was in here, I've already dropped a PDF, like a one-page document inside the group that actually has links to everything. So it has a direct link to the privacy policy, to the total website solution, the website bundle. It has a link to Fearlessly Legal, and then it has a link to the Ultimate Bundle, which is the course and the 9 templates. So you'll see for the Ultimate Bundle option, it'll just take you directly to checkout, and right in that, the way that I have it set up is like you can go to the Fearlessly Legal page, read more about Fearlessly Legal, which is just at fearlesslylegal.com if you wanted to go to it after this. But then to purchase the bundle itself, you just click the link that I dropped in the PDF in the group. So I will share the link to that PDF. I will share it here as well. But remember, if you are interested in the privacy policy template in any form, but you have questions about it, like you're not ready to go purchase quite yet, drop the word template in the comments and I will get in touch with you, or drop FL for Fearlessly Legal or Fearlessly Legal and I will get in touch with you about that one and we will connect. I'm happy to hop on the phone, answer any questions or anything like that. So I hope that this was helpful. If you're new to the community, if you came here for the GDPR training, I hope that you will stay because I do all kinds of trainings on not just legal stuff. So I try to keep it, it's been like heavy legal lately just because there's like a lot going on. I've been getting a lot of good questions, but I also try to host trainings about like email marketing, getting more clients, your messaging and positioning, all of that kind of stuff, and just talk about everything that we're all dealing with as online entrepreneurs. So hopefully you found this helpful today. As you know where to find me, samvanderwielen.com. I even bought the domain for the misspelling of my last name and redirected it because people don't spell it right. So samvanderwielen.com for my site. You can contact me there. You can grab your Legally Legit guide, all of that fun stuff. So I would love to chat with you more. I will keep my eyes peeled for some comments if there are any. Again, drop template or FL for Fearlessly Legal, depending on what you're interested in, and I will get in touch. Thank you guys so much for putting up with me and dealing with this crap, for lack of a better term, crapola, as my grandfather used to say. This stuff is so annoying. I totally get it, but I hope that I broke it down in a way that made it, relatively painless, and this is really how I do business. So my stuff's all like this. If you enjoyed this training today and you are new to the group, head over to the video section because I do trainings pretty much every week. So if you like the way that I broke stuff down today, you will definitely like the other stuff that I did. So cool. Thank you guys so much. I am tired of talking about the GDPR, but no offense to the GDPR. But if anybody has any questions, get in touch. Thank you guys. Thank you.